Uh, good, good evening, everyone. Today, my topic for discussion is CT, MRI, and arteriography, especially in vascular surgery. Going back to the history, in 1930, a Dutch radiologist, Zedis D. Plantus, has devised a technique which has reduced the problem of superimposition in a basic plane X-ray, which has been utilized, and a technique called as tomography has been derived. And this is the word tomography is derived from a Greek word which is tomos, means a section, and graphy means to write. With the use of this technology, the CT scan has been developed in 1970. So similar methods of this transverse axial scanning was independently invented by Hounsfield, Sir Hounsfield in UK, and MacLeod Cormack in Massachusetts. And they established their first EMI scanners in 1971, simultaneously one in Wimbledon and the other in Minnesota. For their work, they were awarded the Nobel Prize in 1980. So coming back to the basic principles of the CT scan, it consists of an emitter and a detector. Emitter emits a thin X-ray beam which sweeps across in a linear fashion in a single cross section. In a first generation CT scan, there is a single emitter and a single detector, which took a lot of time. By each section will go by rotating to 1 degree till 180-degree rotation is completed, and we achieve a 160 by 160 matrix for a single cross sectional image. So the other principles are attenuation. Attenuation is defined as the energy which is recorded by the detector. That is, after the X-ray beams are projected, the energy which is recorded by the detector is presented as attenuation, and it is expressed as density, which is presented to us as a CT number, which is expressed in Hounsfield units. And different structures have different CT number or the density, with extremes being for air it is -1000, and for dense bone it is +1000. The main is water is about 0, and for blood and muscle it is about 40 to 60 Hounsfield units. And the difference in the energy levels of the beam, that is the X-ray beam, and the tissue thickness in which is presented in Hounsfield units, provide the absolute uniform form in a CT scan for a particular section. So coming to the first generation CT, there is a single emitter and a detector which sweeps across by a single degree for each X-ray beam emitted. Whereas when we compare to the third generation CT, it is a single emitter with a fan-shaped beam of X-rays, which is detected by multiple detectors. So the time of acquisition of the images is reduced. So coming back to the types of scanners, that is, first generation CT scan, there is a cross-sectional image of only 160 by 160 matrix, and this type of CT scan is applicable for only limited motion areas like that of the CT head or CT brain. When the second generation CT scans have developed, there are multiple detectors, that is around 30 detectors, which reduce the acquisition time to 15 seconds. With further development, the third generation CT scan, there are multiple emitters, that is, there are multiple detectors, about 100 detectors, which can sweep across easily over the 360-degree arc within 1 second. So the fourth generation CT scan, the detector covers the entire 360-degree arc, and only the emitter rotates over the gantry. So the other is a spiral CT. The further advancement is a spiral CT. Here the slip gantry, the emitter and detector rotate continuously in the same direction, and the image is immediately transferred to the computer so that the image acquisition is even faster. So even with the same amount of radiation exposure, very thin slices can be obtained, which gives a better resolution. So in the first generation, only 160 by 160 matrix has been possible. With the current CT scans, about 512 by 512 matrix is possible. Whereas, and these are defined as pixel, which is a two-dimensional image, whereas the three-dimensional configuration of the same pixel is given as a voxel, which is volume dependent rather than the diameter dependent. So coming to the multi-slice detector, that is the further advancement led to the multi-size CT, and the difference between the CT and MRI is presented here with 512 into 512 matrix in case of the advanced CT with a higher resolution, whereas in MRI it is only limited, that is only 256 by 256 matrix with a only half resolution as that of the advanced CT. Coming to the angiography of the CT angiography, the visualization of these vessels is limited because of the densities. That is, the muscle and the blood have almost a similar kind of density. To improve this imaging, we use the contrast. And the time of initiation of the image acquisition and the injection of the contrast is crucial in better visualization of the image through the CT angio. In the past, from a study of the CT angio from celiac axis to the external ilia would require a lot of non-ionic contrast. It's about 120 to 180 ml. But with the advancements in the power injector protocols and the advancements in the software, now it is not even 100 ml. Then other techniques like split bolus techniques have also evolved. Herein, we give a bolus contrast where we can take an arterial run followed by another bolus, and so that we can achieve arterial venous and a delayed venous phase. So coming to the further advancements in the CT, that is dynamic CT. Here, the basic concept of this is CT images of a fixed point or a fixed location. Here, the gantry, which includes the emitter and detector, continuously rotates over a fixed point, and the passage of the contrast material is assessed by their flow in the arteries, capillaries, and the venous phase, and is presented as a tissue perfusion. Mainly, it is used for brain and cardiac perfusion. And it is processed post processing. It can be visualized as coronal sections and sagittal sections. And with the development of these spiral CT, there is more insight into the vascular anatomy than the axial sections alone. So coming to the measurements in the CT, a simple CT scan usually runs perpendicular to the vessel. That is, the cut runs perpendicular to the vessel. Initially, the diameter of the diameter was taken as a consideration to measure the size of the artery, but with the development of the spiral CT, instead of diameter, volume is taken into consideration, and it is more sensitive in changes rather than the diameter because of the calcifications, skip location of calcification. So coming to the reconstruction, here there is bone overlap over the vascular structures, which can be cut away with an electronic scalpel, but the calcium within the vessels cannot be cut away easily, and it also be visualized on the contrast enhanced CT angiography. So a best quality image acquisition can be obtained by equal ratio of table speed and the slice thickness, or if the time has to be, it can even be obtained in a lesser time by increasing the pitch. So coming to the applications of the CT scan in vascular, one is in diagnosing the aortic disease like aneurysms, dissection, and also in acute settings like trauma, and chronic diseases like peripheral arterial disease, renovascular disease, venous diseases, and venous malformation. In case of aortic disease, it is a primary imaging modality. Because of the advancements with the 3D reconstruction, we are able to highly accurately measure the aortic aneurysms before planning an endovascular repair, and also allows imaging of small branches like intercostal vessels, and also in preoperatively planning to prevent the spinal cord ischemia or infarction when we are doing a thoracic aortic repair. And also we can identify the endoleak. So, the important advantage of CT over MR is it can image calcium, and based on the thickness of landing zones in case of endovascular aneurysm repair, where hooks and barbs have to hook the aortic vessel wall. So coming to the peripheral arterial occlusive disease, it gives an accurate delineation of the stenotic segments and plan for helps in aiding for the plan for management, whether an open or endovascular repair. Sometimes because of the calcified lesions below knee, it is difficult to identify the flow in the pedal vessels or below knee vessels, and it even overestimates the calcified stenosis, and it also differentiates a high occlusion from a high grade stenosis. Coming to the aortic disease, it is advantageous over MR because of the presence of the calcium, and also we can preoperatively plan the landing zones in case of endovascular aneurysm repair. Also, it can be used in diagnosis of the mesenteric artery stenosis and also the aneurysm for intervention planning. Coming to the renovascular disease, both are comparable, both the CT and MR angio. The main advantage where MR angio scores better than CT is the incidence of CAN, that is contrast-induced nephropathy. But also there is a limitation factor, but in patients with renal failure, there is a chance of nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, which can be overcome by time of flight MR, which we'll discuss in the later slides. Coming to the venous disease, in venous disease, mainly in diagnosis of the pulmonary embolism, CT has replaced the perfusion and ventilation scan, which was previously tedious studies to diagnose the pulmonary embolism. But for the diagnosis and accurate evaluation of the below infrainguinal veins, duplex ultrasound still stands better, scores better than CT, because the essential flow information will be given by this duplex. In vascular malformations, a high flow vascular malformation, it supports a diagnosis, but the composition of the nidus cannot be adequately evaluated. In low flow malformations, it's of not much role, where the ultrasound and MRI are the modalities of choice in case of low flow AV malformations. Into the limitations and risk, because of the older generation CT scans have 10 times, when compared to the older generation, now the present 10 times the amount of radiation delivered by the older CT scans, and the incidence of malignancy because of the CT scans, which was 0.4% between 91 to 96, has increased over the last decade to 1.5 to 2%. So the other limitations being a contrast-induced nephropathy, cause might be because of the medullary hypoxia or by the contrast agent itself. So coming to the artifacts with the CT angiography, one is partial volume artifact. Here the object which we are intended to evaluate is not completely in the scan, and the other is the beam hardening artifacts. It is also called as scatter artifacts, which is mainly in patients with prosthetic hip or metallic stents. Tantalum and gold have a significant beam artifacts, whereas platinum has almost no influence in case of CT, whereas tantalum and gold cause few effects in case of MRI images. So these beam hardening effects can also occur when a dense contrast is given through the veins. So this can be avoided by positioning the limbs over the head to avoid this beam hardening effects due to the dense contrast injection with a power injector during CT angiography. So the other will be the motion artifacts, which can range from a double contour to a double visibility of the body. This is because of the movement of the patient. And in dyspneic patients, we can ask the patient to have a shallow respiration, so this motion artifacts can be avoided. The other interesting artifact is averaging artifact. Here, if there is a calcified plaque and an adjacent thrombus adjacent to the calcified plaque, there produces an intermediate density between the thrombus and the calcified plaque, and it presents as an intraluminal contrast, even though there is no flow, but shows as there is a flow into the vessel. So other is a stage step artifact when the interval, reconstruction interval, or the slices are too large, this happens. And also in case if the vessels are not directed along the flow of the CT, like perpendicular vessels like those of the iliacs and renal vessels, these step stair artifact can be seen. Other artifacts may be related to the machine itself. Coming to the MRI, here it depends on the external magnetic field, the magnetic field gradient by the machine, and the applied oscillatory magnetic field. All these define the characteristics of the MR imaging. Here, because of the application of the external magnetic field, the protons in the body align along the external magnetic field, and they resonate to produce a frequency of the protons align along the same frequency of the applied external magnetic field. So there were many machines with they started initially with 1 Tesla, followed by 1.5 and 3 Tesla. In vascular evaluation, the lower Tesla machines are not of much useful because of their slow rate and lesser resolution. And the speed and strength of the applied magnetic field and the strength of the gradient determines the image quality, and this is a rate limiting step in the imaging speed of the MRI images. And the gradients ramping on and off produces the noise which is heard during the MRI imaging. Coming to the images, there are two types of images. There is T1 weighted image and T2 weighted image. In T2 weighted images, simple body fluids like urine, bile, and CSF are bright, whereas in T1 weighted images, fat, methemoglobin, and contrast agents are bright. In MR angiography or venography, we use a T1 weighted image sequence because the echo time and the repetition time, which should be low to get a proper MR angio. In T2 weighted images, these are longer, whereas in T1 weighted image, they have a very short echo time and repetition time of 1 second and 10 milliseconds respectively. And so we can get a angiographic evaluation through T1 weighted images. The other parameters include the field of vision and the image matrix. Field of vision is the size of the imaged region, and the field of vision in a two-dimensional is 40 by 30 centimeters with a 5 mm thickness of the slice. And the resolution of this image depends on the number of pixels within this 40 into 30 region. So with the advancements in the MRI, there is a three-dimensional image sequencing, and with this, the resolution also has improved. Coming to the non-contrast enhanced MR angiography, it is the time of flight angiography. This also uses a T1 weighted image, but in this, a single slice image, in a single slice, the images are gathered rapidly, and the protons within the slice lose their energy and magnetization very fast. And so these fully magnetized protons within the vessel wall flow into the slice of interest and provide a brighter image than the surrounding tissue. Coming to the contrast enhanced MR angiography, in contrast to the CT angio, where the contrast is visualized, here in MR angiography, the contrast is not visualized. Rather, the contrast, that is gadolinium, which increases the which helps in chelation, which helps in increasing the image quality by activating the protons within a shorter time. So, so the effect of the image is better when a contrast is used. So, coming to the step table MR angiography, the spatial resolution of the images is inversely proportional to the matrix, and this matrix has a direct impact on the duration of acquisition. So, to get a higher resolution, we require a longer time to acquire the image. When an IV contrast is administered, the aortic root and the distal vessels is the time of flow of the contrast is dependent on the cardiac output, not only on the volume of the injection, but also on the cardiac output and the occlusion, proximal occlusion. So in step table acquisition, there is the images are imaged sequentially over a specific points. Coming to when in case of a peripheral runoff study, it is a four step table stations. The first in case of abdomen, second in case of thighs, third in calves, and fourth at the foot. This requires additional hardware and MRI coils to get a proper imaging. And disadvantage of this step table technique is a longer acquisition time, and as it goes distally, there is a lot of venous contamination in the later stations. So coming to the applications, MR angio is useful in atherosclerotic renal artery disease or fibromuscular dysplasia, aneurysms of the renal vessels, and also infrapopliteal and also the peripheral vascular disease, and also to detect the axillary arteries, mainly in case of patients who are planning for liver renal donation. They have a high sensitivity of 94% and specificity of 93%. This is an image showing a coronal section with fibromuscular dysplasia, with subtle fibromuscular dysplasia in the right renal artery, and the left with the aneurysm in the mid to distal renal artery. This image shows renal arteries, accessory renal artery, one on the left side and multiple on the right side. So coming to the peripheral vascular disease, it is a standard method for evaluation of the peripheral vascular disease, and the sensitivity of detecting the hemodynamically significant stenosis is almost equal to that of the digital subtraction angiography. That is 99.5 sensitivity and 98.8 specificity. So here in this image, we can see the normal flow through the aorta, common iliac, external and internal iliac, and we can see a short segment stenosis in the proximal SFA and a CTO lesion in the mid SFA with two short segment lesions in the left distal SFA. Similar lesion with the popliteal distal SFA popliteal P1 junction short segment lesion, and also this infrapopliteal with multiple short segment stenosis in the APA. So clinical applications, it can also be used for assessment of the graft patency and stenosis, and also to assess the complications of the graft. This is an angiographic evaluation post femoropopliteal bypass, which shows proximal anastomotic site aneurysm. So in case of carotid vascular disease, it is being increasingly used recently in asymptomatic patients with 70 to 99% narrowing, and which has a sensitivity, high sensitivity of 98 and specificity of 86%. And in case of aortic arch, it is better, it gives a better visualization. This is a normal aortic arch, and this is a bovine aortic arch, and followed by a bicarotid truncus. So all the abnormalities are better seen on an MR angio. This image shows origin of the left vertebral artery directly from the arch, and also dissection, thoracoabdominal aorta dissection till the renal artery. Coming to the mesenteric vascular disease, it is helpful in evaluation of the intestinal angina and chronic mesenteric ischemia, and it is about 95 to 97% sensitive in identifying a mesenteric artery disease and also mesenteric vein thrombosis, and it is almost equivalent and sometimes it's superior to the mesenteric catheter angiography as well. And in case of venous vascular disease, central venous structures are better visualized, and the thrombus can be identified in the central veins with 100% sensitivity, which is comparable to that of DSA. In case of pelvic and deep venous structure, time of flight angiography is used to assess the vascular venous disease in the pelvis. So this is a case of a thoracic outlet syndrome, where in normal position there is no obstruction, where when there is abducted arm, there is occlusion at the subclavian axillary junction. So coming to the limitations and risks with the MRI. One is the fat saturation. It suppresses the signals from the fat and interferes with the signal intensity, that is the hyperintense signal intensity of the vessels during the MR angio. And the other is artifacts created by the gadolinium itself. A large amount of contrast, if given, can produce effects like a metal piece and are susceptible to the surrounding tissue. So, in case of patients who are renally impaired, if the GFR is more than 45, normal dose of gadolinium can be used, that is 0.1 to 0.2 millimoles per kg. As the renal insufficiency sits, as with the less GFR of less than 15, only half of the dose has to be given. So, an overview of advantages and disadvantages. CT angio is considered gold standard, faster imaging, widely available, can image even a larger BMI patients, and accurate localization and the course of the perforator, and identify the vessel down even to 0.3 millimeters, excellent spatial orientation, and also images can be reviewed independently. And when coming to MRI, it is safer risk profile, use of non-ionizing radiation, and both the arterial and venous image acquisition in a single scan. But the time is more in case of MRI. And the disadvantage with the CT is longer ionizing radiation exposure and hypersensitivity and contrast-induced nephropathy. Coming to the arteriography, it still remains the gold standard, but it requires a venue that is a hybrid suite or a cath lab suite, and hardware, catheters, contrast agents, and digital software. It can be performed by a portable fluoroscopy unit or in a designated interventional radiology suite or a hybrid operating procedure. Fixed mount can provide 10 times more better resolution than compared to the portable ones. And end-hole catheters are less used when we are imaging bigger vessels like aorta, where we use the flush catheters like a pigtail. Coming to the contrast agents, high osmolar contrast agents which were used, and these are ionic and these are absulated present. Low osmolar and isoosmolar contrast agents are being used presently, and the incidence of CAN with both the low and isoosmolar are almost similar. And here the ionic contrast agents dissociate into cations and anions when placed in a solution, but the other modalities, when the creatinine is high, we can use a carbon dioxide angiography, where the injection of gas itself displaces the blood and gives an image, and is usually done in a 30-degree Trendelenburg position. And delivery of the contrast can be manual or by using a power injector. Manually, with this connector, the initial one is connected to the pressure transducer, second one to the saline, and third one to the contrast. And a DSA is the amplification of the captured fluoroscopic images, which gives a better quality image, but the radiation exposure is much more than the simple fluoroscopic image. With the pixel shifting, the image, we can get a clear image even when there is a movement during the contrast injection. And the other tools like road mapping, and with road mapping we can measure the real-time image, and we can superimpose on the fluoroscopic image, and we can use it as a guide to cross the lesions. So there's an entity called a single injection multiple linear field arteriography, where we put the flush catheter in the aorta, and both the lower limbs can be imaged at a single time. Other is rotational arteriography, where the image intensifier rotates between 90 to 213 degrees, providing all the images. And to maximize the image quality, we have to limit the patient movements, administer anxiolytic and narcotic medications, and also breathing maneuvers like breath holding while giving the contrast. So there are recommendations for optimal branch separation. For aortic arch, it's about 30-degree LAO, and For iliacs, it is contralateral 30-degree LAO. And for femoral bifurcation, 20-degree ipsilateral anterior oblique. So, with the arteriography, there is risk with the contrast agents, that is CAN and contrast LNG. And with the use of this, and it can also cause cardiac toxicity. The contrast agent binds to the calcium and can induce arrhythmias, which is a rare side effect. And the hematological toxicity, it can inhibit the coagulation factors and also antithrombin 3 activity. And in diabetic patients who are on metformin, it can attenuate the lactic acidosis. And measures to prevent CAN by starting N-acetyl cysteine 2 days prior, and also normal saline 6 hours before the procedure. And with the CO2 angiography, there can occur a mesenteric ischemia secondary to gas trapping. Thank you.